A millionaire walks into a restaurant and freezes when he sees his black ex-wife pregnant waiting tables. The plate slipped from Bianca's trembling hands when she saw who was at table 17. 3 years, 3 long years since he had kicked her out of the house with a suitcase and $1,000, saying that they weren't right for each other and that she didn't fit into his world. And now Ricardo Almeida was there at Bella Vista, the most expensive restaurant in town, showing off his designer suit and watch that cost more than a popular car. Next to him, a stunning blonde laughed too loudly, clearly impressed by the absurdly priced menu. Bianca Santos was only 28, but she felt like she had aged a decade since the divorce. Her 7-month belly weighed heavily on her back as she tried to keep her balance, holding the tray tightly so as not to drop it again. "Waitress," Ricardo called, snapping his fingers as he always did. "We've been waiting for 5 minutes. He hadn't even looked at her yet." Bianca took a deep breath, adjusted her uniform, which was tight because of her pregnancy, and approached the table. When Ricardo looked up from the menu, the world literally stopped. His face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His eyes darted quickly to her belly. Her waitress uniform, the name tag with her name on it. "Good evening," Bianca said in the firmest voice she could muster. "Can I take your order?" Ricardo's girlfriend, one of those artificial models he always preferred, looked confused between them. "Do you know her, honey?" Ricardo still couldn't speak. Bianca saw the exact moment when shock gave way to embarrassment, then to barely concealed anger. As if her presence, there was a personal insult to his perfect new life. "She's an old acquaintance," he finally muttered, unable to look her in the eye. "An old acquaintance?" Bianca almost laughed at the description. 5 years of marriage reduced to old acquaintance. She remembered when he used to take her to the same restaurant to celebrate closed deals. When he called her my queen and said she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Of course, that was before she no longer fit into his world. Before he decided that a black wife didn't fit into his new elite social circles. "Whose baby is that?" The question came out of Ricardo's mouth before he could control himself. Bianca felt the familiar stab in her chest. Even after 3 years, he could still hurt her with a simple question. "That's none of your business, Ricardo." His girlfriend frowned. "What do you mean, Ricardo? Who is this woman?" Ricardo's embarrassment was visible. His new doll didn't know he had been married. He probably told everyone she was single, available, with no complicated past. "No black ex-wife working as a waitress. Have you two decided what you want?" Bianca insisted, trying to maintain her professional dignity. But Ricardo wasn't paying attention to the menu. His eyes were fixed on her belly, mentally calculating. "How many months?" he asked quietly. 7. Bianca saw when he did the math. 7 months meant she had gotten pregnant 4 months after the divorce. She also saw the relief on his face when he realized the baby wasn't his problem. "My God, Ricardo," his girlfriend whispered, finally understanding the situation. "Does your ex-wife work here? Ex-wife?" The word echoed through the elegant restaurant like a bomb. Some customers at nearby tables began to pay attention to the conversation, whispering among themselves. Bianca kept her posture straight. Even though she felt the weight of curious glances, she had learned to be strong over the past 3 years. She had had to learn. "I'll get another waiter to take your order," she said, turning away. "Wait." Ricardo stood up so quickly that he knocked over his wine glass. "Bianca, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. She could feel all eyes in the restaurant on them. "What do you want, Ricardo?" "I need to talk to you. 5 minutes. We have nothing to talk about." Bianca kept her tone professional but firm. "You made that very clear 3 years ago." Ricardo remembered the words he had said during their last argument. Cruel words about her not being classy enough to keep up with his professional growth. About how important clients looked at him differently when he showed up with a black wife at social events. His blonde girlfriend was visibly uncomfortable. "Ricardo, let's go. This is embarrassing." But he kept looking at Bianca. There was something about the way she carried herself. An unshakable dignity even in this humiliating situation that bothered him, as if she knew something he didn't. "How did you end up here?" he asked, genuinely confused. During their marriage, Bianca had always been intelligent with a degree in business administration, helping him with a company, even without an official position. Bianca finally turned around. His eyes met hers, and Ricardo saw a strength he didn't remember seeing before. Life teaches you a lot when you lose everything in an instant. There was something in her tone, an almost dangerous calmness that made Ricardo feel uneasy, as if she had spent these 3 years not just surviving, but preparing something. "Bianca, at your order, sir." She interrupted the tablet in her hand like a professional shield. Ricardo was speechless. The woman in front of him was no longer the submissive wife he had sent away. There was a new strength there, something that made him feel small despite all his ostentatious wealth. As everyone in the restaurant watched the awkward scene, none of them could have imagined that this chance encounter was not chance at all. And if this story of unexpected reunions and second chances touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what was about to happen would prove that sometimes fate reserves its best lessons for those who least expect them. Ricardo's girlfriend, who introduced herself as Sophia just to show her superiority, couldn't stop looking Bianca up and down. "So you're his ex-wife. Wow, what an interesting situation." The condescending tone cut through the air like a razor. Bianca maintained her professional composure, but inside she felt the familiar pang of humiliation that she had learned to turn into fuel. "Ricardo never told me he was married," Sophia continued, playing with her pearl necklace. "I wonder why." Bianca saw Ricardo's embarrassment turn to irritation. He always hated when his lies were exposed, especially in public. During their marriage, she had learned to recognize all the signs of his explosive temper. "Sophia, let's go to another restaurant," Ricardo muttered, but she was clearly fascinated by the drama. "No, honey, I want to have dinner here. It's interesting to learn about your past." Sophia smiled coldly at Bianca. "It must be hard to wait tables when you're pregnant. Especially for someone who used to have a better life, right?" Bianca remembered the day everything had changed. 3 years ago, Ricardo had come home after a particularly important business dinner. He was visibly upset, pacing back and forth across the living room. "Bianca, we need to talk," he had said, avoiding her eyes. "My company is growing very fast. I'm signing contracts with very important people." She remembered feeling a chill in her stomach. And they ask questions about you, about us." Ricardo had stopped pacing and finally faced her. "Some clients get uncomfortable when I show up with you at events." "Uncomfortable? Why, Ricardo? You know why?" Bianca had forced him to speak. "No, I don't know." "Explain it to me, because you're different from them." "Bianca, you didn't come from the same world. You don't have the same education." "Education. I have a degree in business. I have a postgraduate degree. It's not about diplomas. It's about class. It's about fitting in." The word fittin' had echoed in her head for days. What Ricardo really meant was that a black wife didn't fit his new image as a successful businessman. Now, 3 years later, watching Sophia examine the menu of dishes that cost more than Bianca's monthly salary, she understood perfectly the type Ricardo had chosen to replace her. "You know," Sophia said loud enough for other tables to hear, "it's funny how life turns out. 1 minute you're married to a successful man. The next you're serving dinner to him and his new girlfriend." Ricardo finally reacted. "Sophia, stop it. Stop what?" "Honey, I'm just making an observation." She laughed, a high-pitched sound that echoed through the restaurant. "I wonder what happened. Let me guess, it didn't work out because you were too different." Bianca felt the familiar anger rise in her chest, but she took a deep breath. Over the past 3 years, she had learned that uncontrolled anger solved nothing. Intelligence and patience, on the other hand, were powerful weapons. "May I suggest the salmon?" she said calmly. "It's the chef's, special for special people." The subtle sarcasm went unnoticed by Sophia, but Ricardo caught it right away. He knew Bianca too well not to notice when she was playing games. "Actually," Sophia continued, clearly enjoying herself, "it's a good thing it didn't work out between you two. Imagine if you had had children. What a mess that would have been." The phrase hit Bianca like a shot. During their marriage, Ricardo had constantly postponed the conversation about children. There was always an excuse. The company was growing. It wasn't the right time. They needed to settle down better. Now she understood that he never wanted children with her specifically. "The baby you're expecting?" Ricardo asked suddenly. "Who's the father?" Bianca looked at him with disturbing calm. "Someone who wasn't ashamed to publicly acknowledge me." The answer was like a slap in the face for Ricardo. He knew exactly what she was saying. During the last years of their marriage, he had started avoiding important social events with her. always making up excuses about why it was better if she didn't go. "Where are you?" "Living?" he asked, changing the subject. "Somewhere I can afford." "And the child's father doesn't help you." "That's none of your business, Ricardo." Sophia was loving her boyfriend's discomfort. "Wow, what a difficult situation. Pregnant, alone, working hard." She paused dramatically. "At least you have a job, right?" Bianca forced a professional smile. "Yes, I do, and I'm very grateful for that." What neither of them knew was that Bianca hadn't gotten that job by chance. Over the past 6 months, she had meticulously researched Ricardo's habits, discovering his favorite restaurants, dinner times, preferences. The job at Bella Vista had been strategically chosen. During the long, sleepless nights of her pregnancy, while planning how to survive as a single mother, Bianca had developed something much more interesting than a survival plan. She had developed a plan for justice. Mr. Ricardo, a man in a suit, approached the table. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm the restaurant manager. Is there a problem here?" Ricardo blushed. The scene was attracting too much attention. "No, everything's fine." "Great. Adhora is one of our best employees. We always treat our customers and our employees with the utmost respect." Adhora? The manager had called Bianca Isadora. Ricardo frowned, confused. "Adhora?" he asked when the manager walked away. "It's my middle name," Bianca replied simply. "I decided to use it when I started my new life. It was a lie." Bianca had changed her name professionally for a very specific reason, a reason Ricardo would soon discover. Sophia, finally bored with the drama, waved impatiently. "Can we order?" "I'm starving." As she wrote down the order, salmon for her, rare steak for him, the same meal Ricardo always ordered when he wanted to impress. Bianca observed every detail. The way he still touched his hair when he was nervous. How Sophia touched him possessively whenever another woman passed by. How he checked his cell phone compulsively. "Would you like dessert?" she asked when she finished writing. "No," Ricardo replied too quickly. That's all. He wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Bianca could feel the discomfort radiating from him. Good discomfort was just the beginning. As she walked toward the kitchen to deliver the order, Bianca felt the baby kick hard as if he too was anxious about what was to come. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered softly, "Calm down, princess. Mommy's just getting started." Each new humiliation, Ricardo allowed her to suffer, only fueled something inside her that he couldn't see. A silent determination strengthened by the very injustice they tried to impose on her. What that privileged man and his prejudiced girlfriend didn't know was that every act of contempt was writing his own sentence of defeat. And Bianca had spent 3 long years learning exactly how to exact it. In the days following the encounter at the restaurant, Ricardo couldn't get Bianca out of his head. There was something about the way she had looked at him, a disturbing calmness that bothered him deeply. For 3 years, he had convinced himself that she was suffering somewhere, regretting having lost the comfortable life he had provided her. But the woman who had served his table didn't seem broken. She seemed prepared. "Are you sure you don't know anyone else who works at that restaurant?" Sophia asked for the 10th time that week, clearly bothered by Ricardo's distant behavior. "I don't know anyone," he lied, fidgeting nervously with his cell phone. What Ricardo didn't know was that Bianca had spent the last 6 months meticulously studying every aspect of his life. She knew he had dinner at Bella Vista every Tuesday and Friday. She knew he always asked for the same table with a view of the city. She knew he took different women there every month. Always blondes, always models or influencers. More importantly, she knew that he had lied to all of them about never having been married. "How was work today?" Dr. Rafael Mendes asked when Bianca arrived at his small office on the outskirts of the city. Rafael was a lawyer specializing in labor rights. But more importantly, he was the only man who had never been ashamed to be seen with her. "Productive," Bianca replied, placing a folder on the table. "I got more photos." Rafael opened the folder and whistled softly. Inside were printouts of WhatsApp conversations, social media screenshots, bank statements, and discreet photographs. For months, Bianca had systematically documented Ricardo's life. "My God, Bianca, you have photos of him with 7 different women in the last 3 months. 8, she corrected. You haven't seen the brunette from last week." Rafael was the father of Bianca's unborn child. They had met at a support group for victims of domestic violence. He is a volunteer lawyer. She is someone trying to understand whether what Ricardo had done during their marriage constituted psychological abuse. The answer had been a devastating yes. Are you sure you want to do this? Raphael asked, holding her hand. We can just move on with our lives. Get married, raise our daughter, be happy. Bianca looked down at her belly. I don't want our daughter to grow up in a world where men like Ricardo destroy women and get away with it. I don't want her to think it's normal to be discarded when you're no longer useful. Bianca's plan was simple in concept, but brilliant in execution. Ricardo had built his new image as a successful businessman based on lies. To conservative clients, he was the confirmed bachelor who had dedicated his life to business. To young women, he was the man with no complicated past, available and reliable. That whole facade would crumble if the truth came out publicly. The messages you got from his ex-secretary are pure gold, Raphael said, leafing through the documents. She really kept everything. Patricia has always been very thorough, and she never liked how he treated me. Bianca smiled for the first time in days. 3 years of conversations, where he complains about his black ex-wife who was ruining his image. The messages were devastating. Ricardo instructing Patricia to make up excuses for not taking Bianca to important events, complaining that clients frowned when they saw her. Planning the divorce because interracial marriage is not compatible with business growth. All documented, dated, undeniable, and the plan to expose all this. Bianca took a deep breath. His company is closing the biggest deal in its history next week. The celebration will be at the most expensive hotel in town with all the important clients in attendance. He'll be there with Sophia, introducing her as the woman of his life. And I'll be there too. Raphael frowned. How? The same way I got the job at the restaurant. I got a job as a waitress at the event. Bianca smiled in a way Raphael had never seen before. Imagine his face when he sees me serving drinks to the same rich clients he told you he was never married to. The plan was more elaborate than that. Bianca had created social media profiles with all the evidence, organized chronologically. She had prepared a complete dossier on Ricardo's lies. More importantly, she had identified exactly which of his clients were the most conservative and traditional, the ones who valued moral character in business partners the most. Bianca, this is very risky. What if he tries to hurt you? How? She asked calmly. By calling the police, because the ex-wife he hid for 3 years showed up at her workplace by publicly admitting that he lied to everyone about never having been married. Raphael realized that she had thought of everything, every angle, every possible reaction from Ricardo, every consequence. During her marriage, when Ricardo made her feel small and inadequate, Bianca had developed the habit of observing, recording, and remembering every detail. At the time, it was a survival mechanism to understand what she had done wrong. Now, it was her most powerful weapon. There's one more thing, she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. I found out why he really asked for a divorce. Raphael opened the envelope and found copies of emails between Ricardo and an important client dated a month before the divorce. I prefer to work with business people who share our traditional family values, Raphael read aloud. Interracial marriage demonstrates a lack of judgment that concerns me in business partners. 28 million Ray in contracts, Bianca added. That's how much he calculated I was worth. The answer was that I wasn't worth half that. Raphael closed the envelope, impressed by the coldness with which she could talk about her own humiliation. Now what? Now he'll find out how much it costs to lie about who you are. Bianca stood up, adjusting her dress over her belly. And he'll find out that the woman he considered disposable has learned a lot about justice in the last 3 years. As she walked home that night, Bianca felt the baby kick hard, as if she too was anxious about what was to come. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Calm down, princess. Mommy and Daddy are going to give you a world where no one has to be ashamed of who they love." What Ricardo and everyone else didn't understand was that publicly humiliating someone doesn't just destroy their self-esteem. It also teaches valuable lessons about power, strategy, and patience. Bianca had been the best student they could have had, and now it was time to graduate. It was when everyone laughed at her failure. 3 years ago that something unexpected began to take shape, not only in her life, but mainly in the determined look that now shone with an intensity that made even Raphael realize that something extraordinary was about to happen. For a moment, when she accepted the divorce without a fight, Everyone thought they would witness just another woman knowing her place, another different person quietly disappearing from the lives of those who mattered. Under the weight of all those past humiliations, her hands had trembled as she signed the divorce papers. But anyone watching closely would have noticed that it wasn't fear that made those hands tremble. It was the contained power of someone who was about to rewrite not only her own story, but that of everyone who dared to underestimate what a determined woman can do when she finally decides it's time to settle every outstanding account. The party celebrating the biggest contract of Ricardo's career was in full swing. The ballroom of the Continental Hotel was buzzing with important businessmen, all toasting the $28 million in deals that had been closed. Ricardo circulated proudly with Sophia on his arm, introducing her as the woman of my life to every important client. "I've never been married," he repeated to the third investor of the night. "Always focused on business. Now that I've found Sophia, maybe it's time to think about a family." Across the room, Bianca served champagne with her 8-month belly hidden under her waitress uniform. No one paid enough attention to recognize her. She was just another invisible employee, serving the elite until Ricardo turned and saw her. The champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. "What are you doing here?" he whispered, pale as a ghost. "Working?" Bianca replied calmly, offering drinks to nearby guests. "Champ, gentlemen." Sophia noticed her boyfriend's panic. "Ricardo, what's going on? Is it that woman again?" But Ricardo couldn't answer. His eyes scanned the room, noticing for the first time that several waiters were discreetly distributing something to the guests. They weren't canapes. They were envelopes. "What the hell is this?" He snatched an envelope from the hands of a confused customer. Inside was a photo of him and Bianca on their wedding day, followed by printouts of conversations with Patricia about how to get rid of his black wife in order to advance his career. The messages were devastating, dated, and undeniable. "My God," murmured Mr. Thompson, the main investor. "Ricardo, you were married to her." The entire room began to open the envelopes. Indignant murmurs echoed as the guests discovered years of systematically organized lies. Photos of Ricardo with 8 different women in 6 months. Emails where he calculated how much an inappropriate wife would cost his image. "Ricardo Almeida." Bianca's voice cut through the tense silence. "Would you like me to introduce you to my wife?" She had climbed onto a chair, her belly evident, holding a microphone. All eyes in the room turned to her. "Sorry, ex-wife," she corrected with a cold smile. The woman he discarded when he decided that a black wife didn't go with business success. Ricardo tried to reach her, but Sophia held him back by the arm. "You lied to me," she shouted. "You said you were never married." "He lied to all of you," Bianca continued, her voice echoing through the silent hall. "Because the truth was inconvenient. The truth was that he chose $28 million in contracts over the woman he loved." The investors looked between the documents and Ricardo with expressions of growing disgust. Mr. Thompson, known for his traditional family values, demonstratively tore up the contract he had just signed. "Men who lie about their own history," he said loudly, "are not reliable partners for us." One by one, the clients began to withdraw. Contracts were canceled. Handshakes were denied. Ricardo watched his professional life crumble in real time. "Bianca, stop this," he begged, finally managing to get close to her. "Please stop what?" "The truth." She got down from the chair with Raphael's help, who had appeared discreetly. "You said, I didn't fit into your world, Ricardo, so I created my own." Raphael placed the wedding ring on Bianca's finger and kissed her tenderly. "And now our daughter will grow up in a world where no one needs to be ashamed of who they love." The last image Ricardo had was of Bianca leaving the empty hall, head held high alongside the man who loved her publicly, carrying the child he had rejected from her. Sophia had disappeared in the chaos, probably already looking for the next single millionaire. The waiters collected the empty envelopes and broken glasses. In 2 hours, Ricardo had lost his girlfriend, all his contracts, and the reputation he had spent years building. In the parking lot, Bianca placed her hand on her belly when the baby kicked hard. "Calm down, princess," she whispered. "Mommy and Daddy just gave you a world where you'll never have to choose between love and success." But what even she didn't realize was that this night of justice was only the beginning of a much bigger transformation, not just in her life, but in the lives of everyone who witnessed how an underestimated woman can rewrite the rules of the game. When she finally decides it's time to collect every humiliation, she suffered with compound interest in regained dignity. 6. Months later, Bianca held Sophia in her arms as she watched. Raphael signed the papers for the new legal consulting firm they had opened together. Santos and Mendy's specialized labor law firm was growing rapidly, serving mainly victims of discrimination. 3 more cases this week, Raphael announced, smiling. It seems that your story has inspired many people to report injustices. Ricardo's public exposure had gone viral on social media. The video of the party where Bianca systematically exposed his lies had racked up millions of views. Businessmen began to avoid him, considering him untrustworthy for serious business. Did you hear that he's living in a rented apartment? Raphael commented, looking at a news story on his cell phone. He lost his penthouse, his imported car. Even Sophia left him. Bianca rocked Sophia gently. I don't feel sorry for him. He chose the $28 million over true love. Ricardo now worked as a salesman at a used car dealership, far from the social circles he used to frequent. His former elite friends avoided any association with a man who had publicly lied about his own history. Mommy, Sophia babbled for the first time, making Bianca cry with joy. She'll grow up in a world where she'll never have to choose between love and success, Bianca whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. On her desk, stacks of contracts awaited her signature. The firm was thriving by defending people like her, discarded because of prejudice, but determined to prove their worth. Each case won was another victory, against a system that tried to define people's worth by the color of their skin or their social background. Ricardo had tried to destroy Bianca to protect his image, but he ended up destroying himself. She learned that true revenge is not to repay the harm done to you. It is to achieve the success that your enemies could never imagine. A year ago, she was just a pregnant ex-wife waiting tables. Today, sitting in this prosperous office with her daughter on her lap and the man who loved her by her side, she realized that the humiliation had been the best gift Ricardo could have given her. The best revenge against those who underestimate you is not to destroy them. It is to build something greater than they ever dreamed you could be. If this story of justice and overcoming adversity touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that destiny always collects its dues, especially from those who think they can discard people like disposable objects.